It's 6 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. John, if you could call the roll, please.
Atkins. Connett. Here. Crawford. Here. Darcy. Here. Graff.
Here.
Hall. Harris. Holford.
Here.
Hovey.
Here.
Emmett.
Here.
Hosting.
Here.
Longfellow.
Here.
Mennel.
Here.
Minton.
Here.
Newhouser.
Here.
Frail.
Here.
Rick Stimson. Scortino.
Here.
Sin.
Here.
Sundell.
Here.
Wolf. Chairman Zimmerman.
Here. We have a quorum, will do business. We have an even number of board members, so no ties are allowed tonight. So, and with that, if we could stand for the invocation, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful weather that you've given us. Thank you for every day that you give us, that we take life, and each day that you give us is a blessing from you. Pray for the farmers who are there in the fields. Give them safety and a bountiful harvest. Bless them. Thank you for this board as we review the budget tonight. Give each member wisdom and discernment on how to best spend the funds that have been entrusted to us. Thank you for our employees and the citizens of this county. You are a great God, and you've blessed us beyond what we deserve. We pray all these things in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before I call Tim up to take over, Carol, you wanted to share a little something before Carol started?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Crawford and Mr. Sin have been on the board and been through more budgets than I have, but I've gone through them since 1962 or 92, and we got some big numbers to consider tonight. But people's always giving me historic things, and I had a box of things, and it just happened this morning. I dug into the box and I come up with this little pamphlet. And I want to share with you something that's in it because it involves Tazewell County Court. And it's a program from the 100-year anniversary of the city of Mackinac, which I think we all know that the first courthouse was at Mackinac. And I just got a couple short paragraphs I wanted to share with you. On Tuesday, June the 26th, 1927, the contract for building a courthouse was let. And it gives the specifications of how big the logs had to be and what lot it was going to be on. And says the courthouse was to be completed in a workmanlike manner on or before the first day of October next. The courthouse was to be built on a lot, one block, in block 1 at the lowest price for its construction, being bid at $125, the first courthouse. So as we consider the numbers tonight, it says, when the new courthouse was finally occupied in May of 1828, a contract was let to Robert McClure for a jail. The building to be two-story structure, 16 feet square, made of solid hewn logs at a cost of $325.75. It is said to have been one of the strongest and most costly structures of its kind in central Illinois, but nevertheless, the first prisoner held there, William Cohart, a horse thief, escaped the first night.
Thank you, Carol. Wasn't he your great-great-grandpa? Tim, you want to take...
We're going to start out with just a little bit of an overview. Wendy and Craig have been vigorously running numbers the past week. We do have a few general overviews we'd like to get to you, and then we'll open up the general fund budget and go from there. So, Wendy?
On the overhead, what I wanted to do was first frame this for everybody. Russ Crawford, who called me, he brought up a really great point that we have a lot of new board members, and that sometimes understanding everything that we do can be a bit confusing. I'm sure it's confusing for me, and I do it all the time, so I can just imagine for all of you. The big question we get a lot is, why do we have to guard the general fund? Why do we have to pay attention? And what you'll see up there is, this is the general fund, and these are all the departments that it supports. So it supports county administration and county board, circuit clerk, public defender, state's attorney, jury commission, the auditor, the county clerk, the treasurer, assessments, board of review, community development, our buildings and grounds, which is both building administration and justice center, the sheriff, which you can see is a big part of our budget, and that includes the jail and our deputies, EMA, court security, probation, court services, coroner, courts, farm. So it's huge. These are the departments that are supported by this. As you look at this, you can see kind of the areas that are the biggest for Tazewell County would be our buildings, or would be sheriff, our buildings, court services, which is probation. And so what I wanted to do is kind of give you an idea as to why this is important. We do run pretty lean in all of these areas, but still takes quite a bit of money for us to run the county and support the general fund. So then, Craig, if you could change to the next slide, thank you. This I put together general and special revenue expenditures. In our budget, informational fee funds are there, but the board has no control over that. So this really shouldn't come into consideration as we're doing anything. But what I wanted to show you here is, in total, when you look at this, the general fund makes up 47% when you add both the general and the special revenue funds together. Highway would be your next biggest, and it's at 20.59. So it's pretty big. And then we come in with the health department behind that at 10.37. So those are some of the bigger ones. And included in this, you know, are your items such as your health insurance, IMRF, risk management. There are a few of these that have to support themselves though. So of these, treasurer's automation, whatever revenue comes in is what they spend. Health internal services, that kind of is funded by all of the departments. Drug court, it has to be funded based on whatever revenue comes in. Risk management, or not risk management, animal control, and the VAC, those have to support themselves along with highway. So as you look at this, there are some of these that are supported by the revenues that they generate, and some of these are supported by property taxes. So if we go to the next one, thank you, Craig. This is expenditures of the tax levy fund. So we levy funds on behalf of Social Security, the general fund, the health department, PDD, risk management, the VAC, highway department, and IMRF. So as you can see, of course, the general fund's 53.07, highway's about 22.23, health department's 11.7, and then we get into some of the other areas, IMRF and risk, Social Security. So these are all supported by our property tax levy. These are the only funds that you will see that are supported by those. The rest, they have to kind of figure it out for themselves, whatever their revenues are, and that's what they get. They're usually based on fees. So if you go to the next page, or the next slide, this is the last one I have for you. And so what I wanted to show you here is, this is the percentage of the tax levy that each of these gets. So the general fund gets 40.3% of the tax levy. The highway department gets 22.5. Risk gets 12.06. So it's pretty big. And the risk is for areas such as lawsuits or workers' compensation claims, property, if we have damages to our property, etc. VAC gets a pretty small chunk of that. PDD gets 3.8, which is about $500,000 a year from us for that. And IMRF is coming in at 5.71, and then the health department gets 6.43. So as I look at this, what I understand here is anytime we have to increase, or in the past since I've been here and we've had to increase for, say, IMRF has gone up, or risk, majority of the time it's come from the general fund. And so that was why a couple of years ago we said any increase for a couple of years we were going to freeze, because the general fund couldn't support that anymore. We used to have great revenues that would come in and support it, and every year we were tucking away $2 million, $1 million, $3 million, and we stopped doing that. And it was at about the time Nick Graff was telling us he was uncomfortable with it, with how we were budgeting, and it just coincided with the revenues decreasing. And so I just wanted to kind of give you guys an overview so that you kind of understood. Russ may have something that he thinks should be clarified too. He brought it to my attention. I thought it was it was great of him to point it out, because it is. I know we sometimes get confused, and there's always that, well, I need money and this one needs money, and I feel it all the time because I'm always trying to figure out how to give everybody money, but the pie is only so big. But I kind of wanted to give you an idea as to what each of these supports and how they get their funding.
Mr. Crawford?
I humbly would like to offer my appreciation to the administrator for putting this together. In all the budgets I've sat through since 1976, I've never seen this done. And I think what motivated me originally was the new board members, but quite frankly, all the board members need to see how the pieces of the pie fit together and what chunks and what percent in terms of property tax and all the revenue funds, and then especially the general fund. I just wanted to add one thing. We're trying to solve this financial dilemma we're in with evolution rather than revolution, and it's, some of you have different opinions about whether it's working or not. Department heads and county officers think it's working fine. Some conservative board members, they're still concerned. I'll just say that when I was auditor, one of the things working with the external auditors that we instituted, and the board voted unanimously to do it, was because all of the, Amy and, I don't see Craig, but don't listen. So a lot of the funds that take a lot of our time to fiscally manage, such as the highway funds and the health funds and other funds, the treasurer spends her time, the auditor spends her time, the county board office, finance department spend its time doing all that work with zero compensation for it. We didn't think that was fair, and we knew the county general fund was struggling, and so we instituted an administrative fee to each of those special revenue funds that would be basically a transfer to the county general fund. And it wasn't punitive in any way, it was based on what real work was done. And so it's possible someday we may have to go back to that. I think it's appropriate accounting to do it now, but if we don't need to, that's fine. But it's definitely something that we've done before in Tazewell County. It worked very well. And it was only when we sort of got fat and sassy that we stopped doing it again. Thanks.
Thank you. Wendy, kind of along the same vein, for the budget committee or finance committee, as we met, you had gone over and explained the IMRF issue. Can you re-explain that again for the rest of the group? Because really, in light of what we're going to be talking about tonight, one of the things that is completely out of our control but is impacting our numbers significantly is IMRF because of the increase that we're taking this year. And Wendy and Dave, Chairman Zimmerman, both went to a meeting for an explanation on this a number of months ago, just so we knew exactly how things were going to be calculated. But this is really dinging us this year, and there's nothing we can do about it other than potentially spread the cost, as Mr. Crawford had mentioned, but I think that's a little premature to do that for this year, for this budget, but it is something I think that we might want to think about in the future as a shared cost, because it is something that does cross all lines throughout the county, and if we have to depend on our general fund each and every year to do that, we might continue to be in this downward spiral. So, Wendy, will you take that?
So Tim is correct. This year, in December of 2018, IMRF voted to reduce the assumed rate of return on investments from 7.5 to 7.25. While that doesn't seem like a lot, what it equates to is each year IMRF calculates a contribution rate for each IMRF employer. The assumed rate of return is a huge component of this. And so since that assumed rate of return is decreasing for 2020, our contribution will go up. So IMRF estimated that the average employer contribution rate for 2020 would range from between 10.15 to 10.65 of payroll. We received and typically these don't change. They send out kind of an estimated in July, and I haven't seen them change in the time I've been here. We received ours, and it was for IMRF 11.59. Now that's compared to 9.51 for the year we're currently in. And so that's on our total payroll. We will pay an additional 2%. SLEP, which is the Sheriff's Law Enforcement Pension, that went to 22.85% for 2020. That's versus 18.45%. So that's 4% on all of our Sheriff Law Enforcement personnel. That's deputies. So the impact of that to our budget as we settle in and we start figuring this out is about $500,000, $500,000 that we will be responsible for in this next year. This isn't something you can just not pay. You know, I know other pensions don't do that. IMRF doesn't allow it, and it's smart because whatever they tell you you should pay, you have to pay. They can also withhold, tax dollars that we receive from the state if we didn't pay it. So we will have to pay on top of what we already paid an additional $500,000. So, you know, looking at that, that gets us down to the question of where do we pay that from? Yeah, so that's, I figured it out, and of that total increase, about $350,000 of it is related to the general fund. So it just is that's where I showed you where most of those departments are, and that's where a lot of the people are. Highway had about 26,000 of that. Health department had 96,000, and the VAC had 1,300. Pretty small amount, and those are for the levy funds. So when I told you earlier that some of the funds have to kind of support themselves, so animal control has to pay their entire IMRF, Social Security, and all of that with what they bring in revenues. So they don't get support from a tax levy, and so the burden doesn't shift to anybody other than that department. GIS is another one that would be like that. So yeah, so that one isn't great for us, right? So it is something we do have to consider and figure out, both how we want to handle it, how we want to pay it. This is typically the time that I sit back and we kind of get these final numbers, and then I look at the fund balances to kind of figure it out, kind of what our comfort level is, what our history level is. And so I think that I don't think IMRF can just take the $500,000 hit on the fund balance. I think it's going to have to come from some of these other departments. So we're going to have to figure that out, and that's probably a question for this evening.
Okay. So on those two issues, the graphs or the charts that we've seen so far in IMRF, does anybody have any questions at this point? Okay. Yeah.
With the changes that we're going to propose, maybe you're going to do this later. The magic sheet, we need to have a name for this so I can refer to it as something other than the magic sheet.
It's the graph.
The graph.
I think it's your operating deficit. I think you can call it your operating deficit.
So do we have a new number for that?
Craig should have. So this is just the general fund. So we haven't brought in that IMRF piece, right? Because it's in its own fund. And the other piece we're going to have to bring in is, unfortunately, risk is up quite a bit as well. And I can give you high level why those two are up and what their issues are. So let's say, so that's when I said that conversation piece of we have to figure out where to put that 500. So if you take it from here, I think Craig can add it and show you what the impact is.
So we'll get there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Mr. Sin.
What's the perceived income? Is it flat, going down with property taxes, sales tax?
Revenues, you mean?
Revenues, yeah. So we can talk budget, but yet can we slide whatever increases, will the increases, if we do have any, cover the shortfalls in these piling IMRF and the risk?
I don't know that they necessarily will. I think we have about a 2% increase built into property tax, and that's just based on, that's what CPI can go up this year. Craig could probably give us an actual number. So we are seeing some increases in certain things. Income tax, interestingly, we've noticed an uptick in income taxes. And then the other one that I mentioned during the budget, as we spoke about the budget, is the online sales that they'll be collecting the sales tax for us. The problem is it won't start till July of next year. So we're not going to see the impact of that in our full budget. So that makes us nervous to project anything of an increase in that. I mean, we're hopeful that we will definitely see we should see something. And it should, we're hoping that it's good. That was a really great thing for Illinois, and that we're able to get that, and that it will come to our level. But yeah, from the fiscal year 19 to now, we see about $150,000 in income tax increase. So that's gone up. And then the other, we have noticed public safety sales tax has, like this year, it's been pretty good. I think we've budgeted it kind of flat. I think makes us a little nervous to increase it. But this year, like Tim has pointed out to us multiple times, like it's doing really well. Every time we get to finance, it seems like we're doing really well. So I don't know that it's going to cover the entire amount. And that's the unfortunate part of it that we're kind of faced with.
Okay, let's go ahead and get into the general fund. We'll go through, there have been a lot of changes made, which you all should have a copy of this at your desk, which shows by department, reason, percentage or dollar change. Those are already reflected, correct, Craig?
Yes.
So in your first graph, Nick, or that current graph, all of these changes are in there already. However, Wendy has a few updates we need to make in a few of these different accounts and funds, which will change that number, and then we can discuss where to go from there. So can I get a motion to get the general fund on the floor? Motion by Crawford, second by Graff. Okay, Wendy, do you want to go through those?
Sure. This year, on a good note, our health insurance, we had a better year than we projected. So last year we had a really rough year, and we came off of a rough year. So this year, as we looked at all of this, I believe I spoke with all of you last year. We had several employees that had been lasered, and so what that means is the insurance looks at them and they say, we want you to take on more of the risk of Tazewell County. So typically what happens is Tazewell County pays the first $125,000 on every person that is on our plan. And then after that, insurance kicks in. And so every so often you have someone with something going on and the insurance says, okay, we want you to take $200,000 on this person, and everybody else stays at $125,000. Well, last year we had major, I think we were like $1.2 million. Fortunately, it doesn't appear, I know we have a couple of months left, but based on information I received, a couple of those we didn't ever even get near that. So that is a very good thing, both for us and probably for the person that they were lasering, right? Because that means whatever health issue they're dealing with it's maybe not as severe as they once thought. So this year we received a much lower laser. We do have a couple of lasers on our plan, and the insurance, the representative told me, and I do get this, especially after this year, he said, well, if they're lasering, then you're taking the risk, but with that what happens is if they're not just increasing your rates, right? So they're saying you take the risk, and if it happens, plan for it, and if it doesn't, you keep those dollars. So it's, you know, between the two, I never know how I feel. Like, part of me just likes to know what the number is and not have to worry about a laser. But on the other side, after this year, we've seen we didn't have such a big laser, we didn't have that expense. So maybe we did do better off. And I think that's why we do self-funding, is because we take on a lot of that risk. So with that, on the first one, so we saw a reduction from what I had put in the budget. So it was, I think it's about a 7% reduction from what I budgeted to what you will see here. And the first one is county board. So there's a reduction of $2,331 for medical insurance. And so Craig would have, I think, final number of what that would make the county board amount.
Yeah, the final county board now is $395,549.
We'll just keep going. Okay, sorry. The next one would be in circuit clerk. There's a reduction, medical insurance of $22,456.
The circuit clerk is now $1,430,984.
And as we go through these, if you have any questions on anything else in that particular budget, obviously this is the time to ask that question too. All we're trying to do is highlight the major changes that we are now making from our first two meetings that we had. So, yeah.
Can you say what pages you're on also?
I will, I'm sorry.
That's
I can do that, yeah.
That's okay. Yep.
That's exactly. Thank you.
That's probably helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so the circuit clerk was on page 35. So I'll let you guys all get to 35, and then when I feel like you're ready, I'll move to the next one.
It's on the far left column.
Yeah, he just, my friend here showed me.
The accountant.
I gotta bring in candy.
Okay, so that was the circuit clerk, and that was in the medical insurance line. The next one would be public defender on the next page, which is page, 35. That you should have been on 34, now we're on 35. Again, this is medical insurance. Public defender is a decrease of $15,946.
So the new total for public defender, $1,442,779.
State's attorney budget is an increase of $71,882 for medical insurance, and that's on page 36.
Question?
Yeah, Mr. Crawford.
I have the same question you do.
Yeah, I know you worked hard, Tim and you and Dave and everybody, to bring this medical insurance down, and it went down in almost every department. It went down over $30,000 in the county clerk's budget, but yet in Stu's budget it went up almost $72,000. Do we know why?
To me, it's looking like there might be a mistake, that when we put in the department budget, that we might have had a mistake in that number. And these are based on who has insurance at the time, so it's our best guesstimate. You know, we have open enrollment starting here in October. Craig, if you have more insight, but to me, I think that this is part of it is a mistake that came through.
It was just an oversight or a missed number somewhere. So, but we corrected it now when we got the revised numbers.
So you've corrected, but not on here, right?
Not in the book.
Not in the book, but in the next book.
So maybe, hopefully, the error is that there should be a minus in front of the 71,000.
When I'm looking at it, I wish there was. I don't think that there is. This is partly why we're trying to get a new software system, because all of this is manual. So this is taking numbers from one spreadsheet, transferring them to another. You're just asking for mistakes by doing that. So hopefully we will be budgeting in the new one next year, and it'll be a whole different thing, and it will save a lot of time and allow us a lot more time for analysis, which is what I feel like we never have quite enough time for.
Russ, we'll get clarification on this.
Could I ask that exactly what you said, and would somebody, maybe Wendy or Craig, send an email to the full board explaining the new number there? Thanks.
Okay. So then the next page would be page 40, and that would be the auditor, and that budget went down $1,264 for medical insurance.
So that makes the new total for the auditor $107,687.
And we will go to page 41, which is the county clerk. And the medical insurance line went down $31,640.
So the total for the county clerk is now $1,414,527.
The next would be the treasurer, and that one decreased $6,381 for medical insurance.
So the new total for the treasurer is $493,640.
Next page would be assessments, and that one went down, let me make sure I have it right, $25,181.
So the new total for assessments, $421,667.
Board of Review, page 44, medical insurance decreased $835.
And the new total for Board of Review, $113,514.
The next one would be community development, page 45. And on this one, there's a couple of things. So the first one is a decrease of, is it a decrease? It's an increase of $839 for medical insurance. The next item, if you take these two together, basically, Crystal just made a switch. So she took $400 out of gasoline, or added $400 to gasoline, and took it from addressing services. This year, when we have been doing these inspections for Washington, we've had more in terms of mileage, so that has gone up, so that's part of doing that. So as she was reviewing her budget one more time, she came back through and said she needed to change that, but she also had negotiated down on the addressing services so she could cover that without making any change to her budget. Next, you would go to page 47, and that would be on building admin. Medical insurance went down $3,382. Because I'm slow on the uptick, I just realized that on the left-hand side it says a page number across there.
Right, yeah, we did.
I didn't know that. I just all of a sudden was like, wait a second, I should point that out. Wow. Too many numbers. All right, go ahead, Craig.
The new total for building administration, $3,651,857.
Okay, page 49 is Justice Center. Medical insurance there on page 49 went down $7,314.
The new total for Justice Center, $1,031,639.
That brings us to page 51, the Sheriff's Department. Medical insurance went down $91,067.
So the new total for the sheriff, $12,037,863.
That takes us to page 53, EMA. That went down $1,170 for medical insurance.
New total for EMA, $239,959.
Next will be court security, page 55. Insurance went down $44.
The new total, $703,019.
Next would be page 57, court services. That went down $46,653.
New total for court services, $3,051,472.
That takes us to page 60, and that's the coroner's budget. And medical insurance decreased $3,487.
So the new total for the coroner, $437,372.
That takes us next to courts, page 63, which medical insurance decreased $26,894.
The new total for courts, $253,807.
That will bring us to county administration, and the medical insurance decreased by $11,638. The computer contract line, I'm going to take, well, I'll explain this. Computer contract increased by $14,000, which I'm not seeing here, Craig, the $22,000.
For?
Oh, did you take, you have $44,000 out of education, travel, and training, and I don't think that's where he had budgeted that.
Oh, yeah, I copied over from last year, so that's not the right line. That should be software.
So
software and licenses should be.
Instead of education, travel, and training, that should be software/licenses, which is on page 66 under capital outlay 109,135,44002. And what I wanted to explain there is this is because we received that cybersecurity grant through the county clerk's office. So we received $44,000 starting now. The $14,000 is to maintain that software. If you remember, that was that additional amount. So we were planning to have this in the budget for next year, so we wouldn't have had the support for next year. We would have just had the cost for it because it's rolled in, it's support and software. So what we had to do is we decreased for the additional amount, which was that we took it down $44,000, but we added $14,000 to our computer contract line so we can continue to have that software.
Everybody understand that? Remember what we did there? Yes? Okay, all right.
And then, so then that takes us down to our adjustments line in county administration, and that is an increase of $243,248, and I wanted to explain why that is. As we've been in the middle of negotiations, we have given the option to take it all up front or take it however they want, you know, as we're kind of working these out. It appears a couple of them have interest in taking it all in this year, meaning when we settle. But we do have a couple of outstanding issues with all of them, so I don't know when they'll settle. So what I wanted to do is make sure we had budgeted for that full amount. So what would happen is they would take it all this year and then it would be zero in the next years. So there wouldn't have an increase in future years. So that is why we have added that additional amount, as they kind of have come back to us, and some of them have expressed interest in doing that.
So just as a reminder to everybody, this line item adjustments was created for the sole reason that inevitably we are in the middle of some kind of a negotiation with one of our collective bargaining units when it comes to the budget time. And we know that there are going to be some increases given in that contract, but we don't know what those are because they've not been codified yet. So what we did, we created this adjustments line so that when those contracts are ratified and approved, and if there's any pay increases included, any back pay, for an example, that we have the money in our current budget to make those payments and make that right, okay? So this adjustments line is always somewhat of a, I don't want to say a guess, but it's an educated guess. And Wendy found out about this idea that a few of these groups might want to take the increase all in year one and have a 0% increase in the following years. So if we, for example, if we were to say we were going to give them a 222, they would want 6% in year one and 0 in year two and 0 in year three. So that's what we're trying to do with this line. So there's no magic bullet here. We don't really know whether that's in fact going to happen, but we feel we need to plan for it. So as best we can, this is the guesstimate given the conversations that have already taken place as to how to take care of this issue. So I wanted to make sure all the new board members knew what this line was for, because it is a different number each and every year. In fact, last year we had budgeted $300,000, I believe, $390, and we only year-to-date.
I think we're probably going to come out of that adjustments line spending $115,000 because we haven't settled things in there, you know. So we've given some increases, and that's where that was. But we have several groups out there that we haven't settled with: correction officers, control room, and deputies. So Nancy knows we've been spending quite a bit of time working on these, but we're just not there yet. So we always have to keep that in our minds. The good news is of that 390, we'll only spend 115, so that additional expense won't be there for the current year that we're in, assuming we don't settle those this year.
Last year's number is going to look better than we had planned, and this year we're proposing that we at least estimate this. So I want to make sure everybody understands why we're doing that and what the plan is, even though there's nothing absolute with regards to that. So are we good on that? Okay.
Good.
Yeah. Russ?
And historically, we do that every year.
Right.
And we bury it in the same place every year.
Okay.
The other thing that I did want to mention, so I think most of you know this, but we approved the personnel, we approved a personnel policy which allows for up to 2% performance for non-union, and it says dependent upon funds availability. Well, that always becomes that difficult thing because we never know if it's actually available or not. So that number is built into the adjustments line as well. So that is one of those areas I can tell, you know, when we start to talk about these IMRF numbers and go down that path, that's one of those areas that I think we do have funds that we need to decide how we're going to do that. So that is one of those areas I think we can take from some, that's of course a board decision for all of you, but I did want to point that out as well. We really try to get down to some of these numbers that are actually solid before we have that discussion, because you don't want to put it out there and then pull it back. So. And so with that, then contingency decreased by $586 when you add all those changes.
Okay, Craig, can you give us the new general fund number, and then can you hop to that graph?
Yeah. The new county administration number, 1,632,245. The new general fund number, 32,528,580. Operating.
Just so we can see it first. And what's the number there?
the operating deficit, this is taking out the line of credit proceeds and the capital projects that we're going to fund through the line of credit or plan to fund through the line of credit, and contingency. We are at a general fund deficit of $592,557.
And that's taking into account this first page that we've
Yes.
gone through?
Yes.
What about the second?
This is the
Just the first page, right?
Just first page.
Okay. So with that, does anybody have any questions on any of the changes that we've made? And then I want to answer any questions in general anybody else has on any other budget that we've got in the general fund. But then what I would like to do is have one motion to approve the changes that Wendy has gone. We need to amend our current budget. And I would like to do that all in one fell swoop if we can. But I don't want to do that until we have that discussion, but then also, actually I don't know.
I don't know if it's after, so it will be,
Yeah.
All right. So, questions on anything that we've covered, Russ?
But two things. One is sort of a point of order, and that is that we have a motion and a second on the floor. So that motion to do all the stuff, that would be an amendment
Correct.
to the motion.
Correct.
My question is this. When I originally got this sheet and didn't read it, but looked at it, and I apologize about asking this because I'm not on the finance committee. If I was, I'd know the answer to this. So I'm used to seeing every year, in this case, the FY 2020 parameters that the finance committee and Wendy and you sent out to all the county officers and department heads. It said in the 522 quantities, 533 contractual, and 544 capital do not exceed either these raws or these percents. And then what we got is a sheet back only with the line items by department that exceeded those parameters and why they exceeded them. Did we do that? I just don't have it, or did we not do it, or what's the story there?
Question.
we did have parameters. I was trying to find them so I could give those to you. And there are a couple of things that we did. So let me make sure I have the parameters so I can tell you. So what we had said for parameters is we wanted expenditures for total commodities limited to the fiscal year 19 budgeted amounts. Same for contractual. I wanted that limited to the fiscal year 19 budgeted amounts. Capital expenditures, the plan is, there was the whole plan put together by the property committee. So we said that those, since they came out of a work group, those would be what we used, working with the maintenance chairman, the maintenance department head, to kind of get those scheduled. And so basically we're a little behind schedule on those because we had a changeover from Mike Shoney, or from Mike Schramm to Mike Shoney. So we have a little bit of a changeover, but there's still, that's why you see a bigger $3 million in property improvements this year. It's because we didn't do as much this year. So there's that. We asked for no new FTEs, and we asked for 150-day postponement for filling vacant positions. Exceptions if the position is the only one in the department, if the majority of the funding per position is not funded by tax levy dollars, or the position needs to be filled to meet training academy dates. Then we also said for non-union employees, they will be given a 1.5 general wage increase with any increase in performance as established in the HR 0101 policy statement. And that's what I was talking about, contingent upon funds that are available. So, and then part-time hours would need to be submitted to the payroll administrator for determination of the percentage increase available based upon union or non-union status of the position and the hours. Should be, and those should be in line with prior years. What happens is we have said no increases in part-time, so we continue to drive down the part-time dollars, but on the other side we say try to use part-time dollars because then it costs us less. So we had a little bit where we needed to adjust for what those actual dollars were. So we're saying give us your hours that you typically have in a year. We will give you the funds for those because we've held those flat for probably 3 years. And then the last one was that the property tax levy would remain at the fiscal year 19 amounts for all funds other than the general fund, IMRF, Social Security, and risk as approved in last year's resolution F1815, which was approved during the budget cycle. The Health Department, Highway Department, County Bridge, Veterans Assistance, PDD, and U of I Extension would remain at the levels of fiscal year 19 or 18 for those 2 years. So that was what we had given there, and then we did. I did prepare so that everybody, and I apologize that I don't have this here tonight. So I had prepared this for the Finance Committee, and we had discussed it, and it had just shown an increase or a decrease in the budget. So as we went through all of the budgets, and then we had also this year, this is different, and we had asked everybody to fill out a budget parameter deviation explanation that we had for everyone so that you could understand why. So
where's that?
So that's here in front of me, but it's not in front of you.
But
so
we're the ones expected to vote on the general fund and all the rest of the funds, and so it helps that.
It does help.
And it probably, maybe it's too late. It won't be too late for the final budget, but it's too late now. But it won't be too late for next year's tentative budget. All the board members ought to have that, whether they're on finance or budget subcommittee or not. They ought to have it at least, I don't know, 3 or 4 days prior to the meeting so we can review it.
I agree with you, and I apologize for that. And we will have that for you, and we will send those out to you. I'll get those out to you first thing in the morning.
Okay. Any other questions on the changes that have been discussed? Okay, can I get a motion then to amend per the changes on page number 1? Motion by Crawford, second by Sundell. Are there any further questions?
That needs to be corrected for the third one from the bottom to say software and the correct account number.
Thank you. Craig, you got that?
I've got it written down.
Okay.
Under discussion.
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused. I know what your intent is, and I agree with it 100%. But did I understand, Wendy, you to say earlier that there are some additional changes within the general fund that we need to approve that aren't on this sheet? And if that's true, then we need to make sure that when we end up approving the general fund, that those are in there.
So there aren't any additional changes other than this, but I think the consideration comes down when we get to IMRF and there's a $500,000. And I don't know how you want to do that, because there is, for one, I need direction. Are you going to want that, us to take that from the property tax levy that is given to the general fund? You know, do we pull those dollars from the general fund and give that to IMRF? How do we do? That's where I'm trying to get that, but that's where there's that adjustments line where we do have some additional dollars.
So are you saying that, I think I heard you say this before, but I'm just validating, that when we get to the IMRF fund, there's not enough revenue to cover
Correct.
the expense?
Yes.
So I think the discussion of that right now is out of order, because we're not on the IMRF fund. And is it right, Mr. Parliamentary? I'm a former parliamentary. So and then when we get there, you know, we probably should have a discussion about how we're going to cover that.
And I would think we can go back, if we need to go back to the general fund, we can do that tonight. Does that make sense?
So all it would take is another motion in order to renew discussion on any particular fund.
Okay.
So as long as we're still in the tentative budget meeting, we're good.
Okay, very good. Thanks for that, Russ. Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to make the changes that we've talked about already. More discussion to come though. Okay? So all those in favor of those changes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Now let's move on to, go ahead. Yeah. Okay, so we have one other. Craig, is the 50,000 for the ADS grant removed?
Yes,
Okay.
It is
it is removed.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Okay, so now we've got the motion as amended for the general fund. Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Now we will move on to the special revenue funds, and that is the second page of your handout. And we'll, as quickly as we can, go through the same process. Wendy, if you want to run through these and
You just have to approve it, right? I believe they have to approve it because it's the whole board, right? So they're going to approve it. So I think we have to pull each one of these up. Correct?
I couldn't hear what.
Sorry. We need to pull IMRF, even if there's not a change, we still would pull it up and talk about it.
each one of the funds.
What I recommend you do on the special revenue funds, you do whatever you want, you're the finance director. But bring up budget by budget, and then if there's any lines in this page that have to do with that budget, we talk about those or whatever. And then we get, because we're going to have a final vote on every one of these special revenue funds anyway. And while I'm at it, and other board members can speak for themselves, I don't require, I'm not as interested, I can read it, but I'm not as interested in the decreases. I'm only interested in the increases. So when there's decreases, I don't really need your full explanation of that. I can almost figure it out myself.
Okay. So under special revenue funds, county highway, do a motion to get that on the floor. Motion by Crawford, second by Atkins. Those are two decreases.
Yeah, so those are just two decreases, and you can see what those are.
Okay.
Craig would have your final number.
The new total for county highway fund, $2,550,857.
And that one will require a vote. And I believe that one needs a vote. So we make the changes, we vote.
Okay, so we have those two changes. Can I get a motion to amend? Motion by Graff, second by Minton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then we're going to approve that as amended. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
So then we would go to page 112 to go to IMRF and get that one where I think is what you want. So we won't hit these changes till we get there.
Page 112, IMRF, just a motion to get that on the floor. Motion by Atkins, second by Darcy.
And this is the one where you can see that we have revenues over expenditures of $518,000. And if you look at the bottom of this page, you can see your ending fund balance will be $1,723,000, and ending fund balance as a percentage of projected expense is 59.55%. Typically, I think we've tried to run in that like between, I would say 60s to 80s in here. So that's where I would say I have to figure out where to get those funds from. That's where that discussion, I think, becomes one that we have to talk about.
Thoughts? Mr. Atkins?
Do you have any recommendations for us on where you think that should come from?
I have two things. That entire increase, so typically what we've done in the past is the general fund eats it. They eat the whole amount. No, go ahead.
So on IMRF, and Dave and Wendy both attended the meeting, historically, the increases in IMRF have not been like this. So we have been able, as Wendy said, the general fund has been able to absorb that increase. Even though our salaries were going up, the increase that the state was giving us, we could make it work. This particular year is an anomaly. Well, I hope it's an anomaly, but it's a big number. And so that's why we don't want to over dramatize this and make it a bigger issue than it needs to be, but it's a big issue this year for us. So that's why we wanted to spend some time and make sure everybody understood where we're at, what we're doing, because again, we can continue to do what we've done in the past and let the general fund take care of that. But then that creates a problem on the other side, is that we have reserve issues there. We're burning reserve money to make that happen. So we need to talk about this now. Doesn't mean we have to make a structural change tonight, but we think it's only fair to bring it up and let everybody know where we're at. So I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. You know, a part of me says split it between whoever the dollars come from, right? So we all feel the impact. The other side, we have frozen a couple of the levies, a number of the levies, other than the general fund and kind of the risk and Social Security. So they've already been frozen. So do you give them an additional however much? So as I had said, and I don't know what I did with my paper, but you know, it's like $25,000 that the highway department would be hit with. It would be $95,000 from the tax levy that the health department would be hit with, and $1,300 from BAC. And then the additional $350 would come from general fund. So that is where typically what happens and how this works is we get these final numbers, and then I plug them in because I don't know what we're going to be. I have to look at our beginning fund balances, add in the budgeted revenue, have the expense, and then I figure out how we need to change those tax levies so that we can make sure the funding percentages are okay. So I don't know that I'm comfortable. I would say I'm not comfortable with having this fund at 59% budgeted. I'm just not. What if we have a bad year next year in the market? Because this is what that's based on. It's based on the market. So if you have a bad year in the market, IMRF is going to turn around and they're going to tell us, well, now you need to give us more than 11.59. We want you to give us 12.5, right? This one is subject to the market. So that's where there's that comfort level of having it closer to that 60, 70, 80% so that you know you can weather that storm. Versus other areas where you know they're more static. You know, like a Social Security, that's not, it's based on just a set percentage. That's kind of a more flat one. This one makes me a little more nervous. And I think Chairman Zimmerman and I discussed that in the past, that it is one of those that you have to be careful of.
Well, I got some recommendations, but I'm not going to bore you with them tonight. But I do have several questions. One is, in the meeting that you and Dave were in, were there recommendations by the subject matter experts on what to do? That's one question. Second question is, have we reached out to other like-sized counties? And Peoria County, we always usually check with them even though they're bigger, and find out, we benchmark them to see what they're going to do about the same situation, because it's not like it's just Tazewell County. So it's other counties as well. So those are two right off the top of my head that I'd want to, as a board member, before I vote, I'd want to make. And really the deadline is the final budget, because at that time we're approving the levies. So we do have some time, but obviously you don't want to wait till the night before.
And I think we have to pay it, right? Like, we don't have a choice here. Somehow we have to pay it. And yes, you're right. Everybody's feeling this same thing. I believe King County, David has spoken with their chairman quite a bit over this.
Yeah, Chris Lawson from King County, it's costing them $1.2 million additionally. And he led the charge. The IMRF part is pretty obstinate, in my opinion. They're just kind of like, makes our job easier because we don't have to hit these returns. And so until we can get that changed, I don't see what choice we have.
May I, so, you want this on my mic, but David, are there any legislative changes that can address this issue?
I think Chris is trying to get some legislative changes made, so we'll see.
Mr. Atkins?
Well, I've always had a problem with the way that IMRF funds are budgeted. It seems to me that the way in which we budget for IMRF in every county that I know of, it creates a lack of transparency as to the actual cost of each of the operating departments of the county. And our county doesn't have this problem, but I know of at least 2 or 3 counties that have enterprise funds that are in part supported by IMRF dollars, which leads to people not understanding the actual cost of those funds. We don't have that problem, but we do have the problem that you can't tell the actual cost of a state's attorney's office, a sheriff's office, a public defender's office, a treasurer's office, because the IMRF amount isn't included in there. So what I would recommend as one way of giving some idea to a taxpayer who actually wants to read through the budget, some idea of the actual cost would be to apportion based on the actual cost of IMRF for each of the individual departments that have IMRF participation, the amount that we need be apportioned among those departments in order to balance this particular fund. I don't have any dollars to throw out any particular numbers, but I think that that would be a way to take care of this particular issue. It raises a host of other issues with regards to those particular departments, but offhand, that's the solution that I would submit as at least something to be explored.
Okay. Mr. Sin?
Rather than a social arm wrestling of where it comes from, we got $500,000. We're talking fund balances because we're talking the 58% IMRF. That's the critical mass of a fund balance. But if we move it to somebody else's, we're either talking fund balances or levy dollars. That's all there is. So do you take you move it over to somebody else's healthier fund balance and absorb it kind of through there, so then you got revenue. Now, you said before at the beginning, I asked a question because I know this kind of was going to come up. What is the shortfall between the perceived new revenue and the amount of this $500,000 deficit? I mean, there's another one area too, but you also came up with the point. Every levy you've frozen, you decrease their budget 2 or 3% each year because that's how much their costs are good. So there's a levy amount, there's a fund balance amount, and then there's the perceived revenue amount. What's that gap of the revenue and do we still got to come up with $500,000?
I think we do have to come up with $500,000, or we could do it. There are other ways, right? Or it doesn't all have to be $500,000. You know, we can mess with this number. If you say what you think your ending percentage of a balance you would want to see, you know, if you said we want to see, can you get it to 70%? That might not be the full $500,000, right? And then so the fund balance in IMRF takes a little bit of a hit, and then I mean, I can also put together scenarios for you, send them out before the budget so that you can see scenarios like if you did this, here's where fund balances would be for everybody affected. If if it's just the general fund, here's what you're going to see. If it's just this fund, here's what you're going to see. If that would be helpful.
But at the same time, levy dollars and fund balance, I mean, we treat all these, and then all of a sudden the final budget we come up with levy dollars, and then all of a sudden, we cut you. I didn't want somebody to get cut twice, so to speak. Okay. Could you get cut in your fund balance and also get cut in your levy proceeds, which would be a double cut to a particular area type of thing in order to meet that $500,000 or something like that? Because even a flat levy is a cut. because the 2% increase in wages or something like that, so.
Right. And you're the board, right? So if you're not comfortable with that and that is something you want, you just have to kind of give me that direction. Like we do, so what you'll basically be saying is any of the funds that have been frozen, we don't touch them.
Well, I'm
so
just
then,
saying I don't want anybody to be double hit.
I get that. But I think,
But again,
I think everybody's going to be.
but you're saying the revenue amount difference is at 500,000 too.
Craig, would you, how much is that revenue
Between sales tax and
for the total for property? Do you know what, I think it's in there actually.
The property tax levy was going up $16,000
No.
for IMRF.
No, meaning where that amount is, I know what you're saying. So if you, so it would be that difference of 5750 versus the 5539. So it's about 210,000. That's how much it's gone up. So, because it's all in this general fund, that's where we put it to begin with. So it's 210,000 is what that was. So no,
300,000 gap, basically.
then is there any sales tax? I mean,
so the only thing that went up is 150,000 that we're projecting, kind of on that Illinois income tax, because as I said, we've had a good year, and I'm hopeful that we will. But like we're estimating 6.9 million in public safety sales tax, but the budget we have at 6.8. I think it's comfort level. Mary and Craig kind of went through it and looked at it, and that was kind of where they came out. So.
I'm kind of changing the direction, so if she wants to continue.
Let me make a comment and then I'll come back to you. So, what we wanted to do tonight is, as best we can, get direction and consensus. We're not going to make this decision tonight, obviously, okay? But if there's not the stomach to make some of these structural changes and do the, as Mr. Atkins suggested, maybe the cost share, if there's not the stomach to do that, that's fine. We can go ahead and have the general fund do this and we'll come up with the money through contingency or reserve. We can do that. But we just need to be careful that we don't make a habit of that. But we wanted you to know that this issue's getting bigger, it's going to continue to get bigger, and we don't want to put it off forever. If this isn't the right year to do it, and if the board doesn't have a feeling that they want to do that, that's your decision. But we wanted to make sure you had all the options, and if you want us to, as Wendy's described, get you information over the next few days as to what option A, option B, option C, option D may look like, for us to consider that for final budget, final board meeting, we can do that. But if you don't want to go through all that work, then we won't do that. So I'll go to Nick, and then.
Well, that was going to be my question: is what if we do nothing? So, and I'm not trying to be inactive. We're taking $500,000 roughly out of general fund and putting it into IMRF in some way.
Right.
Does it matter if we do it now or do it a year from now? The money we transfer into this, we can't transfer it back once it's done. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we're taking money out of our operating and making it into a specific line. I'm kind of the opinion that we're too late in the budget process to do that this year. And I'm kind of the opinion that just leave it alone. I know it's a problem. I know it's a $500,000 problem. But I'd rather keep the money in our general fund and fix it later on, even if it costs us $1 million next year to do it, rather than tying our hands now. Hopefully, maybe it'll change next year. It probably won't, but I'm thinking that we've had our lean years. You look at 14 and 15. We were at 49%, 51%. We've been there before. So I'm kind of the opinion, let's just leave it alone for now and put together a very detailed plan. If we want to do something Mr. Atkins did or something like that, then let's implement it next year. We're too late in the budget year to do it this year.
And then the other thing that Greg's already hit on is we know we're gonna be getting more revenue, but we just don't know how much. And it would be really nice if we could peg that number. But again, we're gonna need a year under our belt to be able to really project what those increases are how they're gonna affect our budget. But nobody has a crystal ball, and that's the unfortunate part. Mr. Crawford. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll defer. Yeah, Mr. Atkins.
I just wanted to say, I still like my idea, big surprise there. But, I think that Mr. Graff actually has a better idea, and I don't want to propose something on the fly where we don't have sufficient time to make a decision properly. So I just want to say that Nick's idea, as much as it pains me to say this, is better than mine, and I support his idea.
Thank you. First off, I really support Mr. Graff's idea. I think he's spot on when it comes to where we're at in the timeline. But the second thing that I wanted to say is I applaud the administrator's offering of scenarios. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year we take a look at some potential scenarios, have some kind of modeling for our decision making, because we're in very murky waters right now. And they may be more nebulous than it really appears. So if we could have some kind of modeling, maybe that would assist our decision making. So thank you.
Okay. Andy?
Mine is a question. Okay, so when I'm looking on page 111, and it shows that, like, it gives you the years of history, like actual for 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18. And I'm just looking at the revenue numbers in 14, 15, 16, 17. Then something changed in 2018, and that total revenue dropped somewhat significantly. Was that like a decision the board made to not give as much? Like, how did that happen?
So we had done 10 years prior to that point, we had done an IMRF buyout. So those work if you reduce your workforce, right? So what happens is you have to pay for that over 10 years. So you do an IMRF buyout, and it allows people to buy time, and then they can retire early. But what they do is they increase the percentage that you pay. So we were paying about 14% at that time. Then it dropped substantially whenever that time period ran out. So we basically paid it off. So I've had people ask me, will you ever do another IMRF buyout? Likely, I don't think I will ever do it. And I'll tell you what Randy Stevens from IMRF said. He said, when I see counties do it, when the administrator's a year or two before retirement. And I said, you won't see me do it. I wouldn't do that. Like, that's just, I don't think that's right. But interestingly, who took this is one of your administrators. I mean, they did take it. And that's a common thing that I think that you see. It's not good for necessarily the county unless you're able to reduce your workforce, which is like the voluntary retirement incentive. We knew we had to reduce the workforce, so there's no reason to do that. There was no reason. And so that is where you see that difference there. It went from 14, I think, down to 10. It's a substantial decrease. You didn't need as much, I believe, in terms of the tax levy. And then that consumption taxes, that's from the public safety sales tax. They submit a portion for the people in the jail. Like that public safety sales tax, they give that over here for the benefits.
Makes sense?
Well, okay. So my question would be, are you saying IMRF said that this portion of your general property taxes had to go there?
No.
Okay, so you said that, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess I'm just curious, because over this period of time, looking like at the general fund, the general property taxes have gone up the trend has been upward over that period of time. So is that what you're saying, though? Like, your one option would be to go ahead and just fund it out of the general fund, or could you up the amount of money you give to this? But you're saying that comes from.
Yeah, so what we do
that's
is when we get to our final budget, we'll have an estimate of what our property taxes, what we're going to be taking in, okay? And then what Wendy does is she takes that, let's just say it's $10 million. It's more than that, but say it's $10 million. and she decides, based on everything we've talked about, fund balances, benchmarking, where we see revenues and expenses, and then those funds that receive property tax revenue, we then decide as to where we set that revenue figure that will be put into that fund. And in some cases, a few years ago, our insurance, our property and casualty insurance, we were doing really well. So we didn't have a lot of lawsuits going on and things like that. So we took risk and said, you know what? Instead of giving that one X amount of dollars, let's cut it by $300,000 because, oh, by the way, IMRF might need it. So there's this shell game that goes on every year depending on what's happening from the outside in, like this. This is completely out of our control. We have no control over it at all. It's just been thrown our way. Now we've got to figure out how to fix it. And each year, whether it's litigation, whether it's sales tax or income tax or something's happened to certain departments, we have to then decide who's going to get what. And believe me, we'd love to get everybody everything they need. But unfortunately, we create some winners and losers each year, and that's just what we have to deal with.
Okay, so if you then upped the amount of general property taxes given to this fund, you've got to take it from somebody else.
And that's the struggle.
I would like to give my support to Nick's idea as well, with another thought. We have this new computer software that's coming in, and if we're looking for scenarios, it would seem to me that would be something that we would expect that to produce for us. So I think it would be unfair to the administration at this point to try to change everything and try to work this all out within a couple of weeks here, and instead take a slower look and get things straightened around. We still have to pay the money, but we'll just do it the way we've done before.
So I'm gathering there's a consensus to do that? Okay. And I did not want to belabor this point tonight the way we have, but it was only, we needed to talk through this. And unfortunately, things pop up and we need to, I want everybody to have the proper history. I want you to have the facts so that you can make an informed decision. I appreciate all your input, but we will go that route. If that's okay. All right. Okay. Then where were we at?
So, I don't know if you have, I don't think you have a, did you have a motion and a second motion? So then you need to get approval.
So we're on IMRF page 111. Any other questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Okay.
Right. So then you would go to 114 township bridge. There are no changes to that one.
114 is Township Bridge. There's no changes, so can I get a motion to get that on the floor? Motion by Emig, second by Atkins. No changes to this one. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Already did county highway, so then you would go to page 125, county motor fuel tax.
Page 125, county motor fuel tax. Motion to get that on the floor. Crawford, second by Mennel.
There's a change.
Medical insurance change is the only change, so I need a motion to amend. Motion by Graff, second by Atkins. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then to approve as amended, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Moving on to 140.
Township road fuel. No changes on that one.
Page 129, Township Road Fuel. Motion by Minton, second by Scortino. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Page 140 is VAC. 132, I'm sorry.
That would be your county bridge fund. No changes.
Motion by Crawford, second by Sundell. No changes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 136 is matching tax fund. Motion by Crail, second by Scortino. No changes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Page 140, VAC. Two changes. Motion to get that on the floor. Hovey, Emick. We have the medical insurance and then contingency, so I need a motion to amend. Motion by Josteen, second by Sundell. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then all those in favor of approving as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Page 144 is animal control. Motion to get that on the floor. Motion by Sundell, second by Minton. Two changes, insurance, medical insurance, and contingency. Again, a motion to amend. Motion by Graff, second by Mennel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And approve as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
148 risk management.
148.
This has several changes.
Risk management, motion to get that on the floor. Minton, second by Hovey. And I'll let you go ahead and do that.
This is our risk management fund. So we do have a few changes here. This one I had hoped that was going to be a decrease. I thought there would be a substantial decrease, and my first pass at it was that it would be. And then when they started to get their hard numbers, what they came in is they said there are a couple of areas that they're seeing increases due to police shootings and sexual molestation. The claims are really going up. And so what's happening is the reinsurers are not wanting to take these claims or take the insurance, and if they do, they only want to take a portion. And so what our increase was much worse than what I thought. It came in at about 15%. So workers' comp I had estimated, we added an additional $5,000. I just ran some numbers trying to figure out, this is always a guessing game, unfortunately. Premium is built in there, but a lot of it has to do with if we have claims. I will tell you that our attorney did say it appears that our work comp cases are reduced in the time that he's been here, so that was probably the first positive thing I've heard on that front. So then there's also medical insurance that's reduced. We reduced risk management. We never spend the full $3,000. That's for if we have to do an IME. Those are what's an IME? Independent medical exam. If we send an employee is on work comp and we have to send them for that, that's where those would we pay those. Property insurance increased $4,000. General liability increased $35,000. That's where you will find those sexual molestation and the other the police shootings. And it's not necessarily what's wrong.
He's still buried.
Yeah.
I totally get why shooting police officers causes an increased cost. Tell me who's getting molested that's in this line?
So what Wendy said, and I'll try to put a little insurance speak into this. So what the insurance companies are doing is because of the prevalence of law enforcement liability claims, meaning claims against municipalities and governmental agencies for alleged wrongful shootings and abuse type claims, there's a lot of those going on. And so the insurance companies are raising their rates because they see the cost of litigation to litigate those and to pay for those going through the roof. The second part of your question is sexual molestation, employment practices liability, meaning sexual harassment type claims within the workplace. There's been a resurgence of that as well. And in fact, the number one claim right now that is being paid in that arena is what they call workplace violence, lateral violence, or bullying. So people will file a claim against their employer because they feel like they're being bullied, they're being harassed at work by other employees, and so lawsuits happen and we end up having to pay settlements. So what they're basically saying is on a nationwide basis, those two types of claims are costing all money. And so as a result, our reinsurance that we're buying, not that we're having a rash of these claims, because we're not.
I know we have.
But
in fact, we haven't since I've been around.
That's correct. because we do a good job of having protocols in place, and you know, we try our best, but that's why. So, did I explain that right?
I know you did. So that's where you'll see that auto liability has increased a little bit, and then that increases contingency. So we've had an increase in that area.
Any questions on those? So I need a motion to amend per these changes. Motion by Minton, second by Joesting. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. And so noted. And approve as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay. 152 is the PDD. Motion to get that on the floor. Motion by Connor. Second by Minton.
No.
Oh no. Mindy. That's what I meant.
Last, yeah, that's all right, but last one was the other, so. I didn't know.
One of you two. No changes here. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 56 is county health. Motion to get that on the floor. Motion by Graff, second by Mennel. Any questions here? There's no changes. Okay, all right. Okay, any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. $168 is Social Security. Motion. Graff. Second by Longfellow. Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 173 is the Health Internal Service Fund. Motion. Hubby, second by Joesting. And we've got some changes to go through here.
Yeah, these should be pretty quick. This was the one that I said that the premium, not the premiums, but the rates came in less than what we expected. So I had a reduction in administration, of $8,250. EAP went down. Claims, we've dropped that down. We also have employee life insurance voluntary, those have gone down. Voluntary, this is where they actually selected the BAD&D, $36. We had employee stop loss that went up a minimal amount of $379. Dependent stop loss in aggregate went down. So I had just budgeted those pretty high because I was concerned.
Okay, questions on those changes? Motion to amend. Motion by Sundell, second by Scortino. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And approve as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Page 176, the Treasurer's Automation Fund. Motion to get that on the floor. Motion by Minton. Second by Connett. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Page 178, the Solid Waste Planning Fund. Motion by Sin, second by Emig. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Page 182 is the Sheriff's Grant Fund. Motion by Darcy, second by Scortino. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 186 is the GIS Fund. Motion to get that on the floor. Motion by Hubby, second by Joe. Any questions on GIS? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Page 192 Drug court, motion to get that on the floor. Motion by Darcy, second by Sundell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Yep, and that should take care of it. Craig, do you have a new total for us, please?
For the whole budget?
Yep.
The entire budget is now $73,598,297.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your input tonight. We will get you. One other thing.
It's just
simply just for information.
That's how I check myself to make sure I have everything.
I had Craig pull this together. Should be a sheet that says population at the top. If you look at that, I just wanted to, again, for those of you who don't know or new board members, I wanted to show you where our property tax rate, what we levy each and every year to build the public, where we stand in relation to our peer counties of similar size. It gives you the year, so it's from 2017, total EAV broken down by each type of EAV, total extension, and then the tax rate. And you notice that our tax rate at 0.514950 is the lowest, significantly lower than anybody else. So we remain a pretty good deal.
I asked also, when you're sending out information tomorrow, would you please send the pie charts? Could you put those up?
Yeah,
I'd appreciate having those. Thank you.
See the numbers, because I thought they'd be bigger up there.
Well, it's nice to look at them the second time. Thank you.
And then statewide, this number is out of 102 counties, I think, where you were either the second or third lowest in the whole entire state. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. People talk to you about taxes and their taxes are going up. I just think this is always a good document to refer to. Yeah.
How many years ago was that we actually raised that?
It's been quite a while.
Yeah.
Quite a while. Mr. Crawford.
Well, you read my mind. Your last statement, I'd like either Craig or Wendy, whoever has it, to send out the thing like this that has the 102 counties on it.
Okay.
I think we had that a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And the second thing is the parameter information. I'd like that, and I think all board members should have it. And then the third thing is Nick showed it to me. He's got the percent increase, I didn't have that. I'd like
Deviations as well.
if finance already has that, that's fine. But the rest of the board members, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Thank you, everybody, for the extra time tonight. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.